10 sports stars currently rotting in jail, and the reasons why. Oscar Pistorius. This South African sprinter was born with a congenital defect that led to around half of both of his legs being amputated when he was just 11 months old. He rose above that and was able to compete and give a good account of himself in both disabled and non-disabled sprint events. Possibly his greatest triumph was at the 2008 Summer Paralympics when he won 3 gold medals in the 100-meter, 200-meter, and 400-meter sprint. During the early morning hours of February 14, 2013, however, while most of us were pulling off romantic Valentine's Day surprises, Pistorius supposedly mistook his girlfriend for an intruder and took her life on the spot. He was put on trial in March 2014 and in September was found guilty of culpable homicide and reckless endangerment. In October of 2014, he was sentenced to a maximum of 5 years in jail. Irate state prosecutors appealed to the Supreme Court, which subsequently found him guilty of murder. He was then handed a 6-year sentence, and this on appeal was boosted to 13 years and 5 months, less time already served. His earliest parole eligibility is in 2023. Wowza, I'm gobsmacked. Eric Naposki. Eric Naposki is serving life in prison without any possibility of parole. He is a New York native who did doughy deeds in the NFL and World League of American Football, with his professional career lasting from 1988 to 1997. The New England Patriots had him for a couple seasons, the Indianapolis Colts for a single season, and he was with the Barcelona Dragons for 4 seasons, snagging the World Bowl 5 during his final season with the Dragons. On December 15, 94, a guy named William Bill McLaughlin was fatally shot. Eric and his lover, one Nanette Johnston, were accused of having plotted the act for financial purposes. On July 14, 2011, a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder, and on August 10, 2012, a judge handed him a sentence of life in prison without parole. His lover was also given the same treatment and is doing her time at the California Correctional Center in Susanville, while Eric is counting trees at the California Correctional Facility in Corcoran. Sam Hurd. Sam George Hurd III stands 6'3" and is built like a battering ram. That's fitting, since he used to be an NFL big shot who played for the likes of the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bears in the wide receiver position. In July 2011, he put pen to paper on a 3-year deal for the Bears. They named him their special team captain and then tore up his contract in December of that year when he got into a little bit of trouble. By trouble, we don't mean that Hurd got caught selling Girl Scout cookies without a permit, but rather on December 14th, 2011, he was hauled off in cuffs in Chicago for trying to buy and distribute sizable quantities of illegal drugs, and he stood accused of heading a big drug trafficking ring that was moving 4 keys of coke weekly and supplying drugs to NFL players. Hurd entered a not guilty plea to the charges against him and on November 13, 2013, got a 15-year jail sentence. He's currently lodged at the Federal Correction Institute in Bastrop, Texas, and May 17, 2025 is his scheduled release date, unlike the last sports star at the end of this video, who's set to be released 100 years from now. John Paul Koppenhaver. Koppenhaver is known as War Machine and is an MMA fighter who fought in varied MMA promotions as a welterweight. His War Machine name proved to be rather apt, with Koppenhaver often seeming to be on a perpetual war footing on the streets. In February of 2008, he got 3 years of probation and a month of community service for assaulting someone into unconsciousness. This was followed by a couple of years in jail for assault. On October 8, 2014, Koppenhaver showed up at his girlfriend's house and had an altercation that was severe. Later, Koppenhaver went on the lam, but was captured in California on August 15, 2014, and sent to Nevada to face the music. He was convicted on 29 felony counts and on June 5, 2017 was given life in prison with parole eligibility in 36 years. Buck Zumhofe. Eugene Otto's stage name is Buck Zumhofe, and he was a professional wrestler who also went by the name Mean Ma Miller. The guy had quite a career and was notable for never entering the wrestling arena without a boombox perched on top of his shoulder. Zumhofe fought in the light heavyweight category in the American Wrestling Association and was also in the World Class Championship Wrestling and the World Wrestling Federation. He was the first guy that The Undertaker stuffed into a body bag and the guy that Triple H battled in his WWF debut. In July of 1986, Zumhofe spent some time in prison for engaging in unlawful acts with a minor, and on January 23rd of 1989, went to jail for 36 months over the same kind of issue. On May 27th, 2013, he was hauled off in cuffs and accused of forcing himself onto his daughter for more than a dozen years. On May 5th, 2014, he was found guilty of 12 felony counts of criminal misconduct and, despite a failed escape attempt, was on May 6, 2014, sentenced to 25 years in jail. Trevone Boykin. Boykin is an NFL quarterback who's plied his trade with the Seattle Seahawks. While in high school, he was a standout football athlete as well as a track and field champ. The Seattle Seahawks snapped him up in 2016 and they dropped him in 2018 in response to the domestic violence allegations he was facing. On the last day of December of 2015, Boykin got into a bar fight in Texas and for that was fined $5,000, suspended from his final college game, and given a 1-year probation. He was again arrested in Texas on March 27, 2017 for being intoxicated in public and possessing controlled substances. On March 27, 2018, 2018, reports that he'd been involved in an altercation with his girlfriend the previous week became public knowledge. Boykin was consequently arrested and charged for this. In June the following year, he was charged with witness tampering concerning the 2018 incident and with assaulting a family member. A cascade of other charges followed, from bond violations and misdemeanor theft. Boykin later entered a guilty plea in respect to the domestic violence incident, and in February of 2020 was handed 3 years in the slammer. Darren Sharper. Darren is an NFL safety who played previously for 14 seasons. After a sterling and record-setting college career, he was picked by the Green Bay Packers for the '97 NFL Draft before moving to the Minnesota Vikings and later the New Orleans Saints. Loaded as among the best defensive backs ever fielded in the NFL, Sharper has 13 defensive touchdowns to his name, plus 63 interceptions, the 6th highest ever. He's also a 5-time Pro Bowl pick and has been selected for the first-team All-Pro twice, while making it to the second team of the 2000s All-Decade team. Sharper hung up his cleats in 2010, and soon after his retirement report surfaced that he'd been drugging ladies and forcing himself on them. In 2014 and 2015, charges were filed against him in different states, and in 2016, he was handed varied sentences that are to run concurrently. He's currently going to spend 20 years in jail. Dave Meggett. David Lee Meggett was a running back who shone in the NFL and was there for 10 seasons. The New York Giants picked him up in the 1989 NFL Draft, and he won Super Bowl 25 while with the team. From the Giants, Meggett made the switch to the New England Patriots and was with them for 3 seasons, with his performance helping them get to the Super Bowl 31 final, where they were vanquished by the Green Bay Packers. His final NFL season was with the New York Jets. Meggett is presently an inmate of the Lieber Correctional Institution in South Carolina. See, he'd been consistently getting into trouble with the law soon after his retirement, and in January of 2009 was arrested for violently taking advantage of a student of the College of Charleston and depriving her of her property. For this, he got slapped with a 30-year sentence and is eligible for parole in July of 2034. Hardbody Harrison. Harrison Norris Jr. was born August of 1966. He served in the Gulf War, used to be a pro wrestler, and was a 2001 Tough Man heavyweight champion. Hardbody Harrison is a ring name he used during his career with World Championship Wrestling, and it does match his personality. His professional career lasted from 95 to 2001 and is respectable but not remarkable. With a hefty out-of-court settlement from AOL Time Warner in his pocket, Hardbody Harrison appeared set for a comfortable, if uneventful, retirement. But that was not to be. 2007 saw him convicted on charges of keeping some women against their will and exploiting them in disreputable ways. He preferred not to hire a lawyer for his trial, acting as his own attorney and contending that he only intended to render help to the women testifying against him. He was found guilty of what he was accused of and given a sentence of life in prison. Clifford Etienne. Clifford Etienne is in for a 105-year stretch, and that without any possibility of parole. He used to be a pro boxer and engaged in brutal slugfest with scary fellas like Mike Tyson, Nikolai Valiev, and Francois Botha. Etienne grew up in Louisiana and was set upon an NFL career. Then, well, in his high school senior, he robbed a mall and got handed a 40-year sentence. In jail, he began boxing and got so good at it that he was never defeated by another inmate. Eventually, he was set free after 10 years on account of being a model prisoner. Shortly after his release from prison, he went pro and enjoyed steady wins before suffering a loss to Fres Oquendo in early 2001. This was followed by a few more wins, with a first-round loss to Mike Tyson in 2003, effectively sentencing him to a career as a journeyman. In August 2005, Etienne engaged in some violent crimes in Baton Rouge. He was tried, and in June of 2006, handed a 160-year sentence that, because of a technicality, was later reduced to 105 years. Click on the playlist to the left to binge-watch more sports stars as well as celebrities currently rotting in jail, and the reasons why. We'll see you there.